So with the Switch 2 now being out and available for everybody to purchase, there's been a number of stories surrounding the Switch. Stories that I see my fellow content creators put out on YouTube, as well as whenever I'm doom scrolling through Twitter. But one particular story really caught my attention, and it is one that I'm going to get into real quick. It involves someone, or actually a group of people, by my estimation, stealing at least close to 3,000 Nintendo Switch 2s from a tractor trailer. So anyway, let me just get on over to this real quick so we can just talk about this, and then I'm gonna give you my take on it. So this article is brought to you by USA Today. I'm gonna have the link in the description for you to read it at your own leisure. So it says here, authorities in Colorado are investigating a heist where an estimated 1.4 million worth of Nintendo Switch 2 consoles was stolen from a cargo truck. According to the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office, deputies responded to a rest stop in Bennett, approximately 37 miles from Denver on June 8th. The semi-truck informed the deputies that he had just discovered someone had broken into the vehicle during the pre-trip inspection. The photos posted on the Sheriff's Office Facebook shows items missing from the car. So let me see if I can check out these photos real quick. Let me see. All right. Let's see here. Wait a second. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Okay. So here is the truck. And you can see the inside is massive. So I don't know if the truck had a full pallet load of Nintendo Switch 2s. I'm not too sure, but this is definitely something that you're gonna need to plan. So this is the truck here. Okay. Oh, well, I don't feel like logging into Facebook right now, but when you go and look at the article, you'll be able to check out the photos. But suffice to say, let me continue. It's unclear whether the crime happened in Bennett or another location. And then it goes on to say, according to the Sheriff's Office, 2,810 new Nintendo Switch 2 game consoles were taken from the truck. Okay, and also they had the story of it being the fast-selling console. Let me see what else we say here. Yeah, the Switch 2, it was the versions of the Mario Kart bundle. The driver told law enforcement he did not know what was in the trailer, only that it was games or toys, per authorities. He departed from Nintendo of America in Redmond, Washington, and was headed to a GameStop in Grapevine, Texas. The suspects could face charges for criminal mischief and felony theft valued at $1 million or more. As of June 17th, no arrests have been made. So, yeah, let's unpack this. Now, usually I will typically say F Nintendo, but in this situation, I find it hard for me to do so because this is a situation I don't condone for anybody. I don't condone for any company, you know. I just don't condone this. But I do feel it does raise a critical situation because putting my conspiracy hat on, I'm wondering if this was an inside job. Hear me out. If this theft happened at the Nintendo World Store, or let's say if it happened at a Best Buy, people broke in the store, stole what they stole, and moved on, that's typical. But these perpetrators, these people, whoever they may be, they broke into a tractor trailer, a semi, broke open the door, so you don't know what's in that truck. It could have been washing machines in that truck. You understand what I'm saying? So, and it's a rest stop, so that means that there were other trucks there. So why that truck? Unless they knew what was in the truck. So it makes me think either it was somebody, a mole on the inside of Nintendo, I know this is very, very far left or whatever, but hear me out. Either it was a mole within Nintendo that's looking to just, I don't know, start something, or more than likely it could just be somebody that was, you know, outside Nintendo store and said, you know what, oh, there's a truck leaving, let's get the license plate number. But either way, this required a level of planning, tracking, and manpower. You know, this was not done by a bunch of amateurs. This was not done by one or two people, you know, on a Saturday night, you know, sipping a couple of bottles of liquor. No, this was like a coordinated event. So it makes me wonder, moving forward, Nintendo, whether publicly or privately, they're gonna have to assess the situation and probably either put forth more security measures. And then I wonder, you know, obviously I would imagine that Sony and Microsoft heard about this. You know, I've personally never heard of anything like this before. That's not to say that something like this has never happened, but it's the first time I'm hearing about this. You know, somebody broke into a tractor trailer and took pallets. I used to work at Amazon, you know, on the ship dock, so I know all about loading trailers. When you stack those pallets, they are several hundred pounds, okay? So that means that you would need a team of people, you would need time, you would also need your own truck or vehicle, because it's damn sure not a car they're using. You need pallet jacks. Like you would need certain things. So this was something that was truly coordinated. And, you know, this is very interesting. See, this story wouldn't be so interesting to me if it, like I said, if it happened at the Nintendo World Store or just a Best Buy. You know, they break in, you know, because I think I've heard of a story like that before. I think it happened at a Walmart a long time ago, where they took a pallet or so from the ship dock within Walmart, or it was some story. It happened a couple of years ago. But this is totally different. Like I said, they took it directly from the truck. And like I said, there's no way you're gonna know what's in that truck. So those people that did this, they must have had inside information. Somebody must have told them, this truck along this route, stopping at this truck stop, has Nintendo Switch 2's. They must have known this. I refuse to believe this was just happenstance, that they were gonna take something from a random trailer and said, oh wow, their Nintendo Switches here. Okay, let's just go take them. No, this 1000%, as far as I'm concerned, was truly coordinated. And again, I know it sounds crazy, but it could be somebody that works for Nintendo that has some ulterior motives, maybe a disgruntled employee that's probably at the top. It could be anything. It could be anything, because again, I would love for anybody in the comments section to really give me a different perspective here, because this is the only thing I could think of. You know, like I said, I know I keep repeating myself here, but if this happened at a regular store, you kind of know what's going to be in a Best Buy. You know what's going to be in Walmart, right? You just go to the video game section, the Switches are going to be there, PlayStations are going to be there, Xbox are going to be there. But in a truck that is closed and sealed, you don't know unless somebody told you. So I don't know, man. I think I don't know how many people are covering this story, but I think this is much more significant than people may give credence to or credit to. Because again, I'm kind of surprised. I'm like, this is something wild. But anyway, you let me know what you think. So that brings me on over to the next story I want to share with you. And this involves Nintendo already bricking consoles for a particular reason. So let's get into that. Let me get on over to the article. This article is published by BGR. I will again leave the link to this article in the description for you to read it yourself, so you can go through it at your own leisure. So this guy goes on to saying that the Nintendo Switch 2 is the fastest selling console of all time, yada yada yada. If you scroll on down, so it involves this thing called a MIG Plenty of users who used the MIG micro SD tool discovered that their Switch 2 consoles could no longer connect to the web. A screen displaying error code 2124-4508 appears on the console, informing them that the use of online services on this console is currently restricted by Nintendo. As shown in the video at the end of this post, there's not much you can do to recover your console. A Switch 2 that loaded a MIG card remains banned even after a factory reset. That's pretty notable to know. So even if you were to try to factory reset your Nintendo Switch, it doesn't matter. Nintendo has basically disabled your console. That's interesting to know. You can still play games offline on a banned Switch 2, but that's not the experience most people are looking for. Playing Mario Kart with friends is one of the highlights of the Switch 2. You also won't be able to buy content from Nintendo's online store or export your save data. If you reset to factory settings like YouTuber Scatterbrain did, you'll lose access to offline games too. In that case, the banned console basically becomes a brick. Okay, so alright, so the thing of note is, if you use a micro SD like thing called a MIG, I'm not into the world of piracy, so I don't really know about these things, but if you use one of these things, your system will be disabled. You can't play online, but you can play offline games. So you still have a basic level of functionality. But if you choose to reset back to factory settings, you will then turn your system into this. Okay, so that's definitely worth noting. All right. Okay, so it's still unclear whether Nintendo will eventually lift the ban. The error message says the console is currently restricted, but it doesn't give any time frame. You could try reaching out to Nintendo support and asking if there's a way to undo the ban. Maybe they'll figure you've learned your lesson and will stick to buying games from the eShop, or they just might tell you to buy a new console. It's just speculating. So what's the deal with MIG cards? All right, YouTuber Scatterbrain says he used the MIG tool to dump the Switch games he bought onto a micro SD card. That's a legit use of the MIG hack that doesn't involve piracy. It just puts all your cartridges into one place for convenience. But others, maybe someone you know, might use the MIG tool to run pirated games on the Switch. That's the real reason Nintendo is cracking down on MIG hacks. And so it shows here a video. All right, let me see if this will play.
It happened. I saw earlier today some people posting on Reddit that their Switch devices were getting banned. I figured, let me see how mine's doing. I didn't do anything wrong. I just tried the MIG Switch on the day of the Switch 2 release, and guess what? Oh yeah. Super banned. That's right. I actually just figured I would just start filming. I have no script. I haven't tried anything else. I just have definitely confirmed that my Switch is in fact banned. This is what happens when you try to go anywhere online or anything like that. I did actually delete all of my data because I was trying to do something and then I decided I should just film. But if you try to go into the eShop, it just doesn't work. You can't really do a whole lot of anything. I figured, okay, let me try to maybe, back up my save data. You can't do that either. I didn't try clearing the Switch yet. I figured I would start filming. But one thing that is interesting, so I wanted to remove the account, right? So just, delete user. You go next, and yep, can't be recovered, delete, and you can't delete it. You can't delete your account off of your Switch if it's banned, because it cannot connect to Nintendo's services. So I figured, let's see the state of my old Switch. This is the OLED Switch that I've got. So because of the virtual carts, you have to load it, and when you try to load onto the system, and it's unable to do it because the system is offline. So that's when I really was like, okay, let me start a video. Let's try a few things. Let's see if we can even recover anything, right? Because This Switch does not seem to be banned, because I can actually go on the eShop here. So we can browse the eShop, the super slow old Switch.
Okay, so what you just watched was part of a 13-minute video. I'm not going to play the whole video, but I will leave a link to that particular video in the description as well. But I just think, you know what? I think this is a slippery slope, because the MIG, it's like this. From what I understand, this MIG micro SD can be used to pirate games, but it can also be used to back up games that you currently own. So from what it looks like to me, Nintendo is not looking to differentiate either one. They just see, or they detect this device and it's a ban. So it's kind of like saying you can use a sword to defend people in the name of justice, or you can use a sword to strike people down. So you're just going to have somebody that's going to say, you know what, we're going to outlaw all swords. It doesn't matter how you're using it. So I'm just using a crude example, a metaphor here. But that's what it seems like that's what Nintendo is doing. And it also is very interesting that the amount of workarounds he's trying to literally create different ways to work around this, and Nintendo just has you by the balls. And you know, again, I understand people are excited for the Switch. I understand that people love their Nintendo. They will sell their soul. They would donate their left testicle for it. But, you know, I have long since took off the nostalgia glasses, and I'm glad that I just have not looked back. But as a content creator, Nintendo is in the news. And like I said at the beginning of this video, over, you know, close to 3,000 Switches were stolen. And now this situation with the Scatterbrain guy, him trying something, you know, that phrase where it says, F around and find out. Well, that's what he did. That's what happened, you know. This is what you guys pay for. So to my understanding, I think Nintendo also had a direct showing off the new Donkey Kong game. I haven't checked it out yet, but it seems like a lot of Nintendo fans are very high on the game. Some are already calling it a Game of the Year game. Let's put things in perspective, okay? It's Donkey Kong. That's, you know, that's like saying Mario Kart World is Game of the Year. Like, let's hold our horses here. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think about this whole MIG situation. Do you think that this ban is legitimate in terms of, do you think that Nintendo is in the right? Do you think they overreacted? Do you support Nintendo? And also, again, tell me what you think about this whole, the truck getting robbed, you know, 3,000 Switches getting taken. I've never heard of this situation happening before. I would love to hear your thoughts. Comment down below. Again, all of the links and whatever is going to be in the description. And also, I do have that join button. Join one of the memberships. I would greatly appreciate you. You'll be my new best friend, so to speak, at least online only. Anyway, take care. Peace.